The Grand Conference Hall in Washington, D.C., buzzed with anticipation as the world awaited Elon Musk's first public address as the leader of D.O.G.E., the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency. The organization, born out of the collective frustration with bloated bureaucracies and inefficient governance, was established to tackle inefficiencies within governments worldwide. Its mission was radical: to streamline public spending, reduce corruption, and introduce technology-driven solutions to improve how governments serve their people. Elon Musk's appointment as the first-ever leader of D.O.G.E. was both celebrated and questioned. Known as a disruptive innovator, Musk had revolutionized industries ranging from electric vehicles to space exploration. But could he apply his bold, unconventional methods to the world of governance? Many doubted it. Others believed he was the only person capable of such a monumental task. As the cameras zoomed in on the stage, Musk stepped forward, exuding his characteristic calm confidence. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, his expression measured, his movements deliberate. Behind him, the massive D.O.G.E. emblem, a sleek design symbolizing efficiency and transparency, loomed over the podium. The world was watching. "Good morning," Musk began, his voice steady and clear. The murmurs in the room faded into silence as every eye locked on him. Today marks the beginning of a new era. For too long, governments around the world have struggled under the weight of inefficiency, corruption, and outdated systems. The people have demanded change, and D.O.G.E. was created to deliver that change. The room was filled with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Seated among the audience were heads of state, economic leaders, and CEOs of the world's largest corporations. Musk's speech wasn't just about setting a vision for D.O.G.E. It was about convincing these powerful figures to trust him with their systems, their data, and, in many cases, their national sovereignty. "We're here to solve problems," Musk continued, "and the first problem we need to address is trust, or more specifically, the lack of it. People no longer trust their governments to manage their money responsibly. Corruption and waste have eroded that trust. But today, I'm announcing a solution." The air in the room grew heavier with anticipation. Musk leaned slightly forward, his tone sharpening. "My first decision as leader of D.O.G.E. is the implementation of a universal transparency initiative. Starting immediately, all participating governments will adopt blockchain technology to track and publicly disclose their spending." The room fell into stunned silence. For a moment, it seemed as though no one quite believed what they had just heard. Blockchain, the backbone of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, was a decentralized and immutable ledger system. Applying it to government spending meant that every transaction, every dollar spent, and every contract signed would be publicly traceable. It was a level of transparency that most leaders had never even considered, and one many would fight against. Musk continued, undeterred by the shock in the room. "This initiative will fundamentally change how governments operate. No more hidden budgets. No more untraceable funds. Every citizen will have access to the data, allowing them to see exactly how their money is being used. This isn't just about transparency, it's about accountability." As the implications of his words sank in, the murmurs in the room grew louder. Delegates from various countries exchanged nervous glances. Some leaned over to whisper to their aides, while others sat stiffly, their expressions unreadable. The tension was palpable, but Musk pressed on. "I know this will be controversial," he said, acknowledging the unease in the room. "Change always is. But let me ask you this. How many times have you heard people complain about corruption, waste, or inefficiency in their governments? How many scandals could have been prevented if the public had access to the truth? Blockchain technology gives us the tools to rebuild trust. The question is, are we brave enough to use them?" The room remained silent, save for the clicking of cameras and the occasional shuffle of papers. Musk's gaze swept across the audience, meeting the eyes of each delegate with a quiet intensity. "This is about more than just technology," he continued. "It's about fairness. It's about ensuring that public funds are used for the public good. Education, healthcare, infrastructure. These are the priorities that should define government spending. Blockchain will ensure that every dollar is accounted for and that waste and corruption are eliminated." A few scattered claps began to ripple through the room, growing into hesitant applause. Some members of the audience, particularly younger delegates and tech-savvy representatives, nodded in agreement. Others, particularly those representing countries with entrenched bureaucracies, remained visibly uneasy. One delegate, a senior representative from a prominent nation, raised his hand and stood. "Mr. Musk," he began, his voice calm but firm, "this initiative may work in theory, but in practice it could expose sensitive national security data. How do you propose to balance transparency with the need for confidentiality?" Musk nodded, as though anticipating the question. "That's a valid concern," he said. "Let me clarify. This initiative applies specifically to public funds. Military and security operations can remain classified where necessary. However, any misuse of public funds, even in those areas, will be traceable. This isn't about compromising security, it's about ensuring integrity." The delegate sat down, though his expression remained skeptical. Another voice chimed in, a corporate CEO seated near the front. "What about private companies that contract with governments? Will they be subject to the same transparency rules?" "Yes," Musk replied without hesitation. "Any company receiving public funds will be held to the same standard. Transparency applies to everyone, not just governments." The murmurs in the room grew louder, and the tension became almost tangible. Musk knew he was pushing boundaries, but that was exactly what he intended to do. Change, he believed, was never comfortable. "This is just the beginning," Musk said, his tone resolute. "The Universal Transparency Initiative will lay the foundation for a more efficient, more equitable world. But we won't stop there. D.O.G.E. will continue to innovate, to challenge outdated systems, and to push for reforms that make governments work for the people, not the other way around." With that, Musk stepped back from the podium. His speech concluded. The room erupted into a mix of applause, murmurs, and a few scattered protests. Outside the hall, reporters scrambled to file their stories, while social media exploded with reactions to Musk's bold announcement. The global fallout from Elon Musk's announcement was swift and relentless. Within hours, headlines around the world dissected his bold universal transparency initiative. While some hailed it as a revolutionary step toward ending government corruption, others criticized it as naive and potentially dangerous. Phrases like Musk's transparency gamble and the blockchain revolution nobody asked for dominated media outlets. Social media platforms became battlegrounds for debates, with hashtags like #transparency_now and #Musk overreach trending simultaneously. In Washington, D.C., the conference hall buzzed with activity as journalists cornered delegates for statements. Some leaders expressed cautious optimism, while others outright rejected the idea. One European delegate, speaking anonymously, told reporters, "This initiative threatens to undermine national sovereignty. Governments need discretion to function effectively. Musk's plan is a recipe for chaos." Meanwhile, in Musk's private office within the D.O.G.E. headquarters, the man of the hour sat calmly reviewing a digital dashboard displaying real-time reactions to his speech. Surrounding him were his closest advisors, a mix of blockchain experts, political strategists, and tech innovators. The tension in the room was palpable. "We're getting significant pushback from major governments," said Sarah Patel, D.O.G.E.'s chief political strategist. "China and Russia have already released statements opposing the initiative. Even some of our allies, like Germany and the UK, are hesitant. They're claiming the plan could destabilize their economies." Musk nodded, his face unreadable. "Expected," he said simply. "Revolutions aren't supposed to be easy." "But Elon," Sarah pressed, "this is more than resistance. Some governments are already threatening to withdraw from D.O.G.E. altogether. If that happens, the entire initiative could collapse before it even starts." Musk leaned back in his chair, folding his hands thoughtfully. "Let them withdraw," he said. "The ones who stay will set the standard. And once the public sees the benefits of transparency, the pressure on the holdouts will be too great to ignore. Change doesn't come from forcing people. It comes from making the alternative irresistible." Despite his confidence, the challenges ahead were monumental. The first test of the initiative came just days later, when Musk called for a pilot program in 3 participating countries: Canada, Sweden, and Japan. These nations, known for their relatively transparent governance, had agreed to adopt blockchain technology to track and publicly disclose all government spending within 6 months. The announcement triggered a wave of global scrutiny. Critics claimed the pilot program was doomed to fail, citing logistical challenges and potential security risks. Musk, however, doubled down, personally overseeing the implementation process. Teams of blockchain experts were dispatched to each country, working alongside local governments to ensure the technology was properly integrated. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire and challenge us to grow. What would you have done if you were in his shoes? Let us know in the comments below.